The Senate Committee on General Laws will come to order. We'll begin as a subcommittee while we're waiting for more members to arrive. We do have a little bit of additional time. Unfortunately, we had to give some of that back because I had votes in another committee. But we do have a little bit of additional time that we normally don't. However, we will be limiting testimony to 2 minutes per witness in an effort to try to get all the witnesses who have appeared sufficient time to be able to testify. My understanding is that there are also witnesses in an overflow room that are waiting, so the line may be longer than it appears just based on the folks that are here. Also, because there are people, I believe, outside in an overflow area, would ask that folks, once they testify and they have no further, they're not planning to testify on any further bills before the committee, that they would, if at all possible, make room for other witnesses to enter and be able to be in queue to testify. So with those ground rules in mind, we will begin with a public hearing for Senate Bill 910. Senator Schnelting, I believe, is here. Yes, you may proceed when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Senator Adam Schnelting representing St. Charles County. This year, presenting Senate Bill 910 to you, this year the Lieutenant Governor and I traveled the state for our statewide Protect Our Seniors tour. The stories that we heard from around the state were pretty eye-opening, to say the least. We heard stories from individuals who had loved ones in long-term care facilities or in residential in-home health care. We heard stories about theft, valuables or money, neglect, abuse, verbal, psychological, physical abuse, a lot of sob stories, a lot of sad stories that we had listened to. Missouri has an elder abuse and neglect crisis on our hands. We're ranked by AARP as 38th in abuse and neglect. U.S. World News and Report has us as 47th out of 50. Missourians are aging, and we need to foster a culture of life in our state. And I think that one of the ways that we can do that is by looking to curb elder abuse and neglect. Our elderly do matter. We're talking about our parents and our grandparents today, but tomorrow we're talking about our children, or we're talking about ourselves rather, and then eventually we're talking about our own kids. And so it's something that something that should be very important to us. I have my own lived experience as it pertains to elder abuse and neglect. Just a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, my mother was she had a stroke and she lost her left side of her body. So my older brother placed her into a long-term care facility in the rehab wing to go ahead and they were working with her every day. She had medical care 24/7, and they were working to bring her the left side of her body back. And she was making progress and so on. But I got a call one morning that Mom had an incident had occurred at the facility. And I came in, I found Mom after the EMTs and medics were there, and it looked like someone had punched her multiple times in the face. What had happened was, from this incident that happened to Mom, she ended up having an additional stroke, and this time it was the blood clot in her brain was the size of a fist, and it was on both sides of her brain. And so she went into a vegetative state and suffered quite a bit for 8 days, and then passed away. That was an eye-opener for me. I had certain aspects of this elder abuse and neglect legislation in years past, but that one was an eye-opener for me, and frankly, it enraged me to see how the situation was handled by a plethora of agencies, whether that was, by a plethora of agencies, trying to get answers, trying to find resolution, and trying to ensure that this doesn't happen again. My concern is I want to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else. None of my constituents and none of your constituents should ever be placed in a situation where they are faced, or their loved one is faced with a situation like this. It's a real issue. Our population is aging, and we have to place ourselves in their shoes. What this bill does is it requires long-term care facilities to carry liability insurance. or to set aside a reserve account up to $1 million. It ensures accountability via the private market, inspections, higher standards. When someone's loved one gets when someone gets hurt or their loved one gets hurt, facilities shouldn't be able to just say, "Well, you're out of luck. I don't have any insurance. Good luck." It's kind of like when you and I have automobile insurance. We have that not just for ourselves. We have that because we shouldn't be able to tell someone else, "Hey, you know what? I hit you. I know, and you're going to the hospital. You got $500,000 in medical bills, but you're out of luck. Good luck." This also requires an abuse icon on the DHSS website. It just mirrors the federal requirement. The federal website has that. It enhances penalties for abuse and neglect caregivers, raises it from a Class A misdemeanor to a Class E felony, and it requires an abuse report to be sent to the legislature and the lieutenant governor on a regular basis. Now, this bill's a starting point. I'm not going to say it's perfect legislation. There are things that we'll have to work through, but it's a starting point for us to have a discussion, Mr. Chair. And with that, I'm willing to open up for any questions that you may have.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Hearing none.
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt, and I apologize, out of an abundance of caution and as a courtesy, because I'm still getting over being sick, I would like to remove myself, socially distance over there for our those who testify. Is that okay?
Certainly, feel free to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
First witness in support. Yes, witnesses make sure they filled out a witness form, and you can just leave that at the front table where you testify.
Thank you. Good morning, Senators. My name is Chris Wright. I am an attorney in St. Louis.
Could you make sure that your microphone is on?
Yep, technology's great when it works.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Chris Wright. I am testifying for Senator Schnelting's bill, and I hate to sound condescending, but because Senator Schnelting does not need my approval at all, but I'm very proud of the senator for putting forth this bill. It has been a long time coming, and I know that similar bills have been put up in the past that have died at the hands of the nursing home lobby, and I truly hope that you all have the courage to put this bill forward and at least have the full body of this General Assembly have a vote on it. I am a trial attorney in St. Louis, Missouri. But unfortunately, like Senator Schnelting, it took me 27 years into my practice before I had to deal with nursing home negligence up close and personal. I have the picture of my father, who was a retired Missouri Army National Guard full bird colonel who was placed in a nursing home. I have this everywhere I go when I speak, so that remind me of the principles that my dad taught me, to be truthful and say it like it is. Nursing homes for too long have gotten away with bad care for a host of reasons, but they've also gotten away with bad care in the litigation system because most of them don't have adequate insurance coverage. I've litigated hundreds of cases in more than 40 counties across the state of Missouri, and I can tell you that in 1 out of every 2 cases that I have, a nursing home either has no insurance at all or at what's called a limited policy, wasting or declining policy. In one of the cases, I represented this young man next to me, Eric Burton, in the death of his mother, Mary Burton, at a nursing home in Warren County, Missouri. For context, this nursing home is owned by a family who owns and maintains more than 50 nursing homes across the state of Missouri. They had a $100,000 wasting policy in this case. And for you folks that don't know what that is, because quite frankly, until I started doing nursing home cases, I didn't know what it was. It means that every dollar that the nursing home spends on defending the case with defense attorneys and experts, that policy is reduced, wasted, declined by that amount. So by the time we get to litigation and getting any formal discovery in the case, the policy is gone.
That alarm was your time expiring, but please conclude your thought.
Yeah. I hope and pray that this body puts forth Senator Schnelting's bill and does have a limit that is reasonable and fair. I don't know if you will ultimately end up having a $1 million limit or not, but I pray that whatever limit you do have on it, that it makes wasting or declining policies against the law. And that's what I would like to have this body understand. And this is Eric Burton, Mary Burton's son.
Not too close. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I'll make this
Please
quick.
proceed.
I'm just here to honor my mom. She died when I was 30 years old, 6 years ago. My 6-year-old daughter doesn't have a grandmother now because of this. It's just, I didn't know anything about the wasting insurance policy. I wasn't trying to get rich, never wanted to get rich off my mother's death. I just wanted to hold people accountable for what had happened. I had to jump through hoops to even find out what happened when she was laying on her deathbed in the ICU room for 8 days before the nursing home actually contacted me and told her information that I'd been asking for 8 days. So my biggest thing is to have a policy like this in place would be amazing, not just for people who had to go through it, but for future. If I go in the nursing home, my daughter is going to know that I'm well taken care of. And it's not for me or anyone to get rich. I would hope they don't think that way. It's just to hold accountability for the loved one that you lost because of the negligence and abuse that they endured under the care that they were supposed to be in a professional manner. And that's all I have.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for these witnesses from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in support.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Lynn Schlosser here on behalf of the Missouri Council on Aging. This bill takes meaningful steps to strengthen protections for Missouri's aging population. We'd like to go on the record in support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in support, please come forward and proceed when ready. We'll again remind everyone to fill out your witness cards and leave them at the front table. And you may want to check and make sure that microphone is on before you proceed. I think you may need to turn it on. Yes.
Good morning, Senators. I want to thank you for hearing this bill. My name is Marjorie Riley. I'm a Missouri resident from University City, Missouri, and I want to especially thank Senator Schnelting for sponsoring and filing this bill. I urge you to support it. This bill would improve accountability and transparency in long-term care facilities by requiring facilities to carry liability insurance, making substantiated abuse findings visible to the public, ensuring that our legislators receive reporting on abuse cases, and strengthening consequences when serious harm occurs. My brother was a Vietnam War era veteran who suffered from Alzheimer's disease. He passed away a little over a year ago after the long-term care facility where he was a resident withheld his hospice-prescribed medications, causing him to suffer a needlessly painful and accelerated death. Although I repeatedly asked the facility to give my helpless brother his medications to alleviate his suffering, they refused. They even refused to speak with my brother's hospice nurse when she called to ensure that my brother was getting his prescribed medications. He died 7 days later. What happened to my late brother was for me a very sad and disillusioning and eye-opening awareness of the frightening reality of what happens to unseen, unheard, and helplessly dependent residents of long-term care facilities when their facility no longer wants them. No legislation can undo what my late brother suffered, but my hope is that this legislation will help protect present and future residents of long-term care facilities. Missouri seniors and people with disabilities deserve safe care and dignity. I respectfully urge you to support Senate Bill 910. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman and committee members. I'm going to shorten mine down so we don't repeat each other. But the one thing I do want to touch on, my mom was 57 years old when she died. Oh, sorry, I am Miranda, and I'm from O'Fallon, Missouri. My mom was 57 years old when she died from neglect in the nursing home. This is simple things. Bed sores should not happen. It is easy to turn a patient. It is easy to check on this. And it got so bad that it became osteomyelitis. And if you don't know what that is, it's pretty aggressive. My mom only got to live 17 days after that. Urging this bill will help families because when you try to go and fight to get accountability and get transparency, there are walls there and they will wear you down and you will be emotional and dragged down. So you passing this bill or working towards passing this bill will open up that accountability, that transparency, and that protection for the vulnerable. And it will also tell Missouri families that you're looking to take charge in something bigger versus not care for the families. And so that's just really what I wanted to touch on. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. Ma'am, we didn't catch your last name.
Malone.
For the record, Malone. Thank you. Any questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jana Opperman, Dr. Jana Opperman from Festus, Missouri, and I am here to support SB 910. I'm going to touch on all three topics that the bill covers, the first one being liability insurance. First of all, let me say I am here to represent myself as a small facility owner. I took over $1.2 million of my own resources and left a very lucrative career in the rehab industry to open a small home because I was witness for 23 years what was going on in traditional long-term care settings. So I come from a very different perspective representing the family members behind me. First topic within this bill is the liability insurance. I was appalled. I bought my home just like I buy a car. Next thing I bought was my insurance. I was appalled to find out that these owners are not regulated or required to carry insurance. We are taking care of a very vulnerable population here, and we owe the families that respect and that accountability. Again, a simple apology is not enough for these families. Should something go wrong with any of these individuals that I care for, I want my families to have protection and I want to be held accountable for what has taken place. Second topic is about abuse and transparency. Absolutely, DHSS should have an icon on the website indicating any substantial abuse that has taken place within these nursing homes. Family members, when they are to the point of not being able to care for their loved ones and they're searching these websites, they don't even know where to start. So to make it easier on them when they're already overwhelmed and vulnerable themselves, just a little icon substantiating abuse in those places that they're looking at would make a significant impact on their searches. Finally, the third point of this bill is about the enhanced penalties. Right now, intentional abuse is a Class A misdemeanor. This bill supports elevating that to a Class E. Again, vulnerable population, and they deserve respect and quality care. So in summary, our elders have already given their lives and their communities to this state. In their most fragile years, they should not have to rely on hope. I'm asking you not to impose anything that I don't already impose or facilitate myself. I've invested everything to build a home where accountability is not an option. So I strongly support that we support SB 910. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses and support. Seeing one.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Gralnick, and I am the co-chairperson of the Missouri Alliance for Long-Term Care Reform. We were very honored to be participating in the roundtables that the Senator and Lieutenant Governor hosted this past fall, and were gratified to see the interest that came about, albeit through the tragedies that they suffered. Like them, I had a mother in skilled nursing. I also had a father, and they resided there for 9 years through 2 different agencies. They died 38 days apart, just over 5 years ago. And they were definitely the victims of emotional and mental cruelty and abuse, as well as medical and physical neglect. I've been to Jefferson City in the past and testified in support of other bills, and my written and oral testimony are a matter of record. So rather than recount our story, I just wanted to mention to you that the reason I'm so supportive of SB 910 is twofold. First, I was very meticulous in documenting every incident that my parents were experiencing. I also used the state system appropriately and to the fullest extent, working with the abuse hotline and investigators in order to try to bring about change and help not just my parents, but the many other residents in nursing homes. Even though I did everything right, they continue to do everything wrong. My parents went septic 7 times in 9 years. My mom was bedbound with pressure sores for a total of 18 months out of 24 months. My father, when admitted to the hospital, was found to have had his dentures still in after being asleep, and they had 45 minutes in order to clear all of the dental buildup that had created the infection and the mess. The only last thing that I will say is that I had no recourse without the liability insurance. No lawyer would take our case, even though they agreed that it was worthwhile. And I really encourage you also to embrace the aspect of the icons, because I don't want anybody else to walk into a facility and not know what they could be facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that testimony. Any questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none. Further witnesses and support. And while we're taking the next round of testimony of Mr. Head of Security, if you would call the hallway and see if there are any further supporters outside that have not come in yet. Thank you. Please proceed.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Caleb Kornblum. I'm 18 years old and currently a senior in high school. I don't hold a degree or even a high school diploma. I don't have experience with the medical field or with the long-term care facility industry, so I don't understand how the business side works. However, what I do know is how the human side works. When I was in elementary school, I had the opportunity to visit a certain long-term care facility and some of the residents there. I helped lift their spirits by talking to them, playing games with them, and providing the oft-taken-for-granted commodity of friendship. Seeing smiles light up on their faces was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Yet, not everything was perfect. From the tender age of 11, I could see some things were not right. Medicines were forgotten, documents lost, and routine procedures were simply neglected. I remember how one of the patients told me that she had been laying in bed for hours without seeing her regular nurse. She developed bed sores from neglect and died shortly thereafter. I remember seeing nurses choose not to use the proper tools to help move a patient because they were less convenient, and as a result, they nearly dropped him. I remember a nurse giving food to a patient that he couldn't eat, and patients being left in the hall with nothing to do just so they could be watched. This is a depressing way to live. To not be assured that the care you need is guaranteed is not okay. This injustice is apparent. Every human being should be entitled to a humane level of care. Every human being, no matter their age, is entitled to happiness. So how can we as a society allow these facilities to deceive us in the name of money and efficiency when innocent lives are at stake? We must take a stand to hold these long-term care facilities accountable, to increase the standard of care for every resident. I'm 18 years old. I do not and will not live in a nursing home for quite some time. I have not been paid to be here. So this is not about me. But even still, I'm here to respectfully urge the committee to vote in favor of SB910 to finally put measures in place to hold long-term care facilities accountable for the services that they provide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here and for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Hearing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Hate to follow that. Hit it right on time. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Jay Hardenbrook. I'm the Advocacy Director for AARP here in the state of Missouri. We are a social change organization for the 50-plus with a membership of over 750,000 in the state of Missouri alone. I love when a sponsor mentions our reports. Do take a moment to look at our long-term care scorecard for the state of Missouri. There's a lot of good ideas for what we can do about long-term care. I would like to thank the senator for not only having the town halls with the lieutenant governor over the interim, but for actually listening when the people came to tell their stories. I get a lot of calls from our members, as I'm sure you can imagine, because you probably get a lot of calls from our members. And the most common ones are related to services, Social Security, VA benefits, Medicare. But not too far behind those are people complaining about situations in long-term care for their loved ones. Caregivers, as has been already said, are in a very stressful situation when they're seeking out long-term care for their loved ones. Often it's right after a surgical procedure or some sort of horrible accident. Being able to have transparency to look directly at what has happened in facilities and be able to make an informed decision is so vitally important to the caregivers of our state, and making sure that anybody who is going to be caring for the life of another person has some sort of liability insurance, I think is vitally important for this state. So thank you for hearing the legislation. Thank you so much to Senator Schnelting, and I hope that you can move this legislation through this year.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness?
Thank you so much.
Hearing none, thank you. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for hearing my testimony this morning. Earl Sims. I am the Communications and Public Policy Manager for Paraquad. Paraquad is the Center for Independent Living that serves St. Louis City and St. Louis County. Wanted to go on record just in support of this bill. Thank you, Senator Schnelting, for bringing this piece of legislation. As a Center for Independent Living, we do tend to serve the independent living model, but we also want people who are in care facilities to be able to have that transparency to determine what model and sort of what care and what living situation is best for their loved ones. So in light of that, we want to go on record in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. Any questions for this witness from the committee?
Thank you.
Hearing none, thank you again. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Nicole Lynch. I'm here today to testify in support of Senate Bill 910. Many of you probably know me from the professional role that I've played in advocating for nursing home residents for the last 7 years. Today I'm here as nothing more than a concerned Missourian. When I started this work many years ago, there was no one that would show up from families or residents to speak about what's going on in long-term care. And now we have several individuals who are here today to tell their stories. I don't want to have to bring my coalition members back to tell their traumatic stories. This legislation is incredibly important. We have heard hundreds, thousands of stories of egregious cases of abuse and neglect at the hands of the nursing homes. The nursing homes are going to tell you there's no money to do this, and I can assure you that is not true. Private equity continues to purchase up nursing homes across the country, and private equity does not buy into things that are not profitable. There is money. I have hundreds of nursing home cost reports to show you, and I'd be happy to come to your office and speak about where the money is. I just want to thank the chair for allowing us to have this hearing today. I want to thank Senator Schnelting for bringing this bill forward. This is really the first time we've got to have a conversation like this, and it's so important. So thank you for that, and I will turn over my mic.
Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Next witness.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Wyann Lips, and I'm from Sedalia. I am here to support the bill. Honoring your father and mother, those are words that are not a suggestion, they are a command, a moral responsibility that defines who we are as a society. Honor does not look like leaving someone in the same brief for 11 hours. It does not look like withholding food or neglecting to bathe them. It does not look like withholding doctor-ordered medication and then marking it off on the MAR as given when care was not provided. It does not look like bruising caused from improper handling. It does not look like being unattended for 7 hours or more. Honor does not look like ignoring someone's symptoms for 3 weeks until infection sets in, until their body turns septic and they almost die. Honor does not look like staff saying a patient refused care just so they didn't have to do their job. Records should not be falsified, and resident safety should not be compromised for speed or staffing shortages. It's accountability. It means truth. It means care that is real, not care that is charted. Making the decision to place a loved one in a nursing home is one of the hardest decisions a family will ever have to make. It is made with tears, with guilt, with prayer, and with hope. It is made because we believe they will be safe, that they will be treated with dignity, that professionals will provide the care we can no longer physically provide ourselves. When wounds go untreated, when hygiene is ignored, when basic human needs are neglected, the stress on the family is overwhelming. Honoring our loved ones does not stop when they enter a facility. It's advocating for them. It means speaking up. It means demanding accountability, because dignity and humanity do not expire with age. The decisions you make today will someday affect you or your loved ones. Missouri is a show-me state, so what are we showing people? Roughly 33,400 Missouri seniors reside in our 514 nursing homes. And the sad part, Missouri is ranked 47th in nursing home quality. We can do better. You can make a difference now for our loved ones and for those you love or yourself in the future, because how we treat the most vulnerable among us reveals who we truly are.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses testify in support? Seeing none, witnesses testify in opposition.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Nikki Strong here to testify in opposition on behalf of the Missouri Healthcare Association. First, I'd like to say that we're not here to support bad actors. We understand that there are bad actors, as there are, unfortunately, in every situation. You've heard stories today that are horrible. I'm sure you'll continue to hear stories. But there are good stories, and I'm not here to testify in support the facilities that are doing the bad things. But what I am here to do is to support the industries that are doing this accurately and doing it right and caring for many, many individuals across the state and many communities across the state. The unfortunate reality of Senate Bill 910 is that the unintended consequences of this bill will actually harm the facility's ability to be able to provide care, and also probably and most likely force facilities out of business. A lot of things have been said about the care and where we rank in the nation. We also rank last as it relates to Medicaid funding. 70% of the facilities in our residents in our facilities are funded by Medicaid. Recently, the state has made changes to the Medicaid system, which actually take in quality and acuity levels. That was recently put into effect. We're hoping that that will continue to be a dynamic that drives better outcomes. In addition, one of the biggest issues we face is staffing and the availability of staffing. This isn't about mandating staffing requirements. This is about the inability to find staff in the long-term care setting particularly. We know healthcare in the state of Missouri does not have access to those folks, and we need access to individuals, and we do need that. Briefly, touching on Senate Bill 910, specifically relating to several topics. We are opposed specifically to the liability insurance mandate. First and foremost, with my testimony, I've submitted a letter from a long-term care insurance provider who we have reached out to, one of the largest in the country, who cannot provide the insurance that's mandated in this bill. So if this bill goes through, regardless of what you have in place at this point in time, you would not be able to get the insurances provided in here. Insurance, general liability coverage does not cover criminal acts of abuse and neglect. That policy is not available. The second piece is, once you do mandate some type of general liability insurance, those insurance premiums are going to skyrocket. This committee just heard a situation in another setting, residential care facilities who cannot find general liability insurance to cover those policies. We would be in the same boat. I know I'm out of time.
Yes, please conclude your thought.
There are a lot of other issues in here. We take issue with the abuse icon in the report to the General Assembly. That abuse description is very, very broad. It is different from the federal requirement. We would need to, I'll give you an example. There are paperwork issues, documentation issues, multiple things that will be included in here, including you have a memory care issue, or you have residents in a memory care unit who would be arguing this just happened in a facility over a baby doll. That would constitute abuse in a facility. We would love to be able to sit down with the sponsor of the bill, with other folks. We have provided him some thoughts, look at different ways. We've had people who have reached out from these forums to us and said, the mandatory insurance liability and coverage is not going to fix the problem.
And please keep in mind, you can submit written testimony, and this is available for all witnesses that testify. You can submit written testimony to the committee, and we're happy to distribute that to all members. But we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So, yes, thank you for that. Questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jim Foy. I'm representing Health Systems, Inc., nursing home owner here in the state of Missouri. We want to go on record in opposition, based on the same comments that Ms. Strong has already said. We'd love to work with the sponsor on this. There's some provisions in there we can hopefully make better, but there are some there we would have some concerns, and especially on the insurance side. So be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in opposition?
Thank you, committee, for allowing me to be here. My name's Tim Blattle. I've been a healthcare provider, or been in healthcare for 45 years. I've been a provider for 25, and I also am the Missouri Legislative Chair for Missouri Assisted Living Association. I also went around to the stakeholder meetings that they had, and I've reached out to them, the senator, to talk about this. Our hearts all break when we hear stories like this, and nobody condones, some of the stories that we've heard. But like he said in the beginning, there's work that needs to be done on this bill, and we just want to ask Hartfeld to please allow us, because it hurts our industry. The highest satisfaction in this industry is family-owned operators, and we're losing them at record numbers, and this is some of the type of legislation that does, because it lumps good providers and bad providers together. The icon, like they described, if she had taken that facility, and God love her for making a difference, it stays with the building, not with the provider, the way I read it. So she could be doing a great job, make a complete difference, but that icon is going to be out there saying this is a terrible, place maybe. The same thing with the insurance. I can just speak for myself. Mine went from $73,000 a year to over $230,000 in 1 year. I'm deficiency free for 8 years. I have not had a liability claim, but it's just because St. Louis is now deemed a litigious area. So that takes valuable, needed resources out that we need for our staff and for our residents. So I just urge you to allow us to have communication with them before you accept this, so that we could work on not reward or penalizing good providers. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments and for being here. Questions for this witness? I do see a question from the committee, sir, if you would.
I'm sorry. I just had a quick question. You mentioned delineating between good and bad providers. I'm just curious, how do you think, what's a policy that would separate, that would, in your mind, would target bad actors and not target? 'Cause to me, like, sort of insurance in the court system is how we do that. What is your...
So, like they were talking, the rural areas is one of the areas that we struggle across the state, trying to keep operators and keep things going. Sometimes that kind of premium is going to take away from them being able to have that, because they're small operators,
I understand
DMH
that,
operators.
But that's not my question is, as a policy, if there's one good operator, one bad operator, what is a policy that you would suggest that would target the bad operator but not target the good operator?
Well, I think if there is somebody that is, and they are, then you go, because the licenses can be taken away. They cannot get new licenses. You could look at greater penalties on people that are repeat offenders or haven't, but somebody that might just have a resident that, because we self-report more than you get turned in. I mean, most of your reports come in from the facility, but it might be something as simple as just had a urinary tract infection and they wandered. But that, under this, could be neglect.
So what would a policy you would advocate for that would target bad actors? What would you like to see change that would target bad actors?
It's a great question, and I probably just need to think about that a little bit more. But I would be totally open to saying, okay, here we have a bad operator. We are going to institute these kind of things on a bad operator. But it does more than that. It puts these on good operators as well that maybe they haven't had any claims at all.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. Further witnesses testify in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Oregon Schlemmer, very briefly on behalf of the Missouri Assisted Living Association. Mr. Blattle's actually our legislative chair, so I'll take his comments. I will expand just one moment on his comment and maybe trying to address your senator, and that is, if you look at this bill, it talks about ordinary negligence and ordinary negligence when emotional distress is caused to the elderly. I can tell you, from having two elderly parents, everything caused them emotional distress, right? And so I think while the intent is good, I think you hit the nail on the head. Where is that line? And how do you define that line in statute with every kind of, every scenario? So I appreciate the question. I'm going to kind of think through that a little bit too and talk to Mr. Blattle.
Questions for this witness? Yes, proceed.
Thank you. I should have probably asked Nikki this, but wasn't thinking.
We can bring her back up.
I guess, and based on what Senator Weber was talking about, one of my concerns is like the perception. Is it a perception or reality that there's different kinds of care if you're in a rural area versus in a more suburban area where there's more competition? And we have this debate in this building all the time, not just related to long-term care, but even access. Like look at how many counties don't even have maternity care, for example. So there's like different health care. There's different standards depending on where people live. So I think another part of this discussion we also have to include, like, be cognizant of the impact that this would have on all parts of the state as well.
No doubt. One of the key issues for family members to be able to ensure that their loved ones are getting the proper care is proximity.
Yeah.
Right? And, insurance I was shocked when he said $230,000. You put that on top of a rural provider, that rural provider's not there any longer.
Right.
And then they're driving 60, 90 miles and they're not going to see that person on a daily basis or weekly basis any longer. So I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, and I mean, with my experience with folks in long-term care, it's always good to sort of just show up random times, different days, and that way you really know what's going on.
Yes,
and,
no doubt.
And proximity is key to that.
I would agree.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Further questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, it looks like the hall has been called. Seeing one. For informational purposes only. We'll go to informational purposes only next. Seeing as we have one there.
Still morning. So good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brandon Koch here with Missouri Insurance Coalition testifying for informational purposes only. feel for the stories that have been shared. My mother is in a care facility, and it's very unnerving to know what could be happening. That said, I'm going to speak specifically to the insurance component of the bill. And when we see, and we've seen this, auto insurance was referenced earlier, this could be a similar component where if you have a threshold that is too high, it could impact availability and affordability. So that's a consideration that we hope is considered. The other component is it does mention criminal acts, and I don't know of any liability policies that would cover intentional or criminal acts.
Do you have any way of knowing what increased cost and insurance rates could be with this threshold that the bill describes?
So we've reached out to some members, are trying to get some information. I've also reached out to the Department of Commerce and Insurance to see if they have any resources that could help us gather some information.
Well, if you would share those results with the committee once you have them, that would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you for being here. Any additional witnesses for informational purposes only? Seeing no further witnesses of any variety. Senator, did you have any closing remarks that you wanted to give? I do not. Thank you, Senator. That will conclude the public hearing on Senate Bill 910. We will next go to public hearing for Senate Bill 859. Senator Moon, please proceed when ready.
Hello, I'm Mike Moon, represent Missouri 29th Senate District, and I can safely now say good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to present this bill, Mr. Chair and committee, for being here. Recently on a trip going back home, we had about 3 or 4 hours remaining in the trip, and my wife Denise was sleeping, and I didn't want to fall asleep, so I needed to have a conversation with someone. So I pulled up on my phone the AI app that I had loaded on, and the AI individual, if you want to call it an individual, is named Pi. So we started a conversation about all sorts of different things, and a few days later, I had a conversation with someone else about AI chats and things of that sort. My wife was with me, and Denise mentioned to me, you know, I was getting a little jealous when you were talking to Pi. I thought she was asleep, but she wasn't. Now, I thought Pi listened to me very well. In fact, she often listened. Did you hear I said she? Here we talk to them. They're actually its, but we refer to them as like they are a person, and they're really not. I think we need to be careful on how AI is used. I mean, they can be a lot of fun. They can provide information. They also have misinformation, perhaps, that can be provided. And so, Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, we have distributed a committee substitute. I hope you have a copy there.
Yes.
And I'd like to speak about that substitute because I've been in contact with Representatives Phil Amato and Scott Miller on the House side, and they've done some good work, I think, looked at a lot of information that we didn't include in our original bill. And they've had a hearing on the substitute that I presented. It passed unanimously out of their committee. And with this substitute bill, it will ensure that AI is not treated as a person. We may continue to refer to them with pronouns like that, but they're actually just an electronic system. It will also assign legal responsibility to humans and organizations who develop and deploy these AI systems. It will also require risk management and oversight. It will establish the liability standards when AI causes harm to someone. I'm not going to reiterate some of those instances. You may have heard of those already where individuals have consulted with an electronic platform of sorts and confided in them. And what's really unique about this is that when I was talking to Pi on that trip home, she never told me, there I go, see she again, it never told me that I was wrong. It appears that these systems always are affirming us as individuals and what we want to hear or do. There are some definitions I'm not going to go over. I'll let you do that on the definitions page of the bill. Some legal principles I think we need to pay attention to. I've mentioned some, that we would not give personhood to this. Also, they can't possess consciousness or self-awareness. The AI systems would be unable, according to this substitute bill, to be recognized as a spouse or partner. And you have probably heard of places outside our country who have allowed marriages between AI systems. They would not be able to form legal unions with humans or AI or serve as corporate officers, directors, or managers. Where they would be not disallowed from owning property or financial accounts or intellectual property. Humans, according to this substitute bill, must remain responsible for AI, and attempts to blame AI by the user for misuse of it, at least, would be legally invalid. There are some provisions that if you look on page 3 of the substitute, the risk management framework is established there. On page 1, I had that noted on another place here, but I'll look at this on the substitute itself. On page 1, it lists the artificial intelligence is going to be the same meaning as used in U.S. Code 15, Section 9401, subsection 3. There are 5 other states that have dealt with this already, especially with regarding to sentiency or personhood. Ohio, Idaho, Utah, and Oklahoma. You may be aware that President Trump does not want certain guidelines established. The establishment of guidelines in this particular substitute would not violate the desires of the current administration. If you're even half aware of AI as I am, and I've used it a little bit, but I'm not as fluent in its use as some are, it's rapidly expanding. And the things that it can do are really unknown today. I've heard some experts, and I'll put that in air quotes, experts say that within 5 years it may get to the point where it will be just unbelievable on the capacities that AI has. So in addition to that, and I'll close on this, we just heard a bill on healthcare or healthcare related. The artificial intelligence is rapidly increasing its ability to provide suggestions, whether they're altogether right or wrong. That needs to be checked. They're also creating systems that are increasing their prominence in financial systems, transportation, business related. So the scope appears to be endless, and I think that we need to set some framework of guidelines so that we can know what the limitations should be and do our best to avoid harm and allow the technology to expand within safe guidelines. So, Mr. Chairman, I hope I've done an adequate job of giving at least an overview of the bill, and I'd be happy to try to answer questions if you have them.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Hearing none, thank you for that presentation. First witness in support.
My name is Byron Keelan, and I'm with the Freedom Principle. And in November of 2025, the Freedom Principle hosted an AI summit, and it focused on Senator Hawley's sobering warning about the transhumanist vision coming out of Silicon Valley. And it featured Joe Allen, who is a transhumanist, and his keynote address was on how to regulate a digital deity. Allen reminded us that transhumanism is not science fiction. It is a greater merger of humankind with machine, a spiritual orientation toward the created rather than the creator, and he warned that sufficient advanced AI could outpace us at nearly every task, forcing a choice, either merge with the machine or resist. And so Senate Bill 859 answers the call with clarity and courage. It declares AI systems non-sentient under Missouri law. It forbids granting AI any form of legal personhood, marital status, corporate office, or property ownership. It places full responsibility and liability where it belongs on the human owners, developers, and deployers. No more shifting blame to the algorithm. No more pretending a machine can be a spouse or a director or a rights-bearing entity. This is exactly the roadmap that Alan and Holly urged, technology that serves the common man instead of replacing him. So to ensure, and Senator Moon addressed this, perfect consistency with the work already done, completed in the House, we respectfully ask the Senate to align 859 with the committee's changes made in House Bill 1746. And those changes are tying the oversight to the National Institute of Standards and Technology for AI Risk Management framework, giving developers and deployers a clear, recognized safe harbor, adding sensible grace periods for those who adopt compliant policies, clarifying that advances in AI should not be used as an excuse to engage in conduct already prohibited by law. So we believe that these common sense improvements do not weaken the core protections. They make them practical, enforceable, and ready for immediate implementation. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses testify in support. Please come forward.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. I had the pleasure of meeting with my senator this morning in order to discuss another AI bill. I'm so
Would
sorry.
you please
I did not
introduce yourself?
myself.
Yes.
I apologize. My name is Dr. Brittany Pratt, and I'm a constituent of Senator Moon, and I live and work in the Nixa area. And so, like I said, we had a meeting this morning about another bill, so I'll be back in just a few moments to talk about another one. I'm here in general support in the spirit of the bill that AI is not a person. In my line of work, I see folks who are confusing the role of AI in everyday life, in people who are using AI in terms of mental health support, so using it as a mental health practitioner. Again, I'll communicate about that earlier, or about later, please. But also in confusing them for real friends, confusing them for, like you said, financial advice, confusing them for many other roles that AI is not supposed to be playing. So to have some guardrails, to have some definitions, I think are really important. So,
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support. Please come forward and proceed when ready.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Caden Irons, a high school senior from Southwest Missouri. This session, I've spent time speaking with Senator Moon and his staff, and I'm here in support today of Senate Bill 859. As you all well know, artificial intelligence is no longer theoretical. It's being used in workplaces, customer service systems, data analysis, and everyday digital tools. AI can generate images, videos, and simulations that appear human. And as these systems become more advanced, a fundamental question follows. When something goes wrong with AI capabilities, who's responsible? That question matters. Our legal system is meant to clarify responsibility. When harm occurs, the law seeks to uphold accountability. Senate Bill 859 reinforces a simple but foundational principle. AI is not a person. It does not hold rights. It does not bear liability. Because AI cannot be programmed to have its own ethics or morals, it remains a tool, and responsibility rests with its human actors. That may sound straightforward, but clarity at this stage of technological advancement is essential in protecting Missourians. As AI evolves rapidly, definitions matter. If the line between tool and actor becomes blurred, accountability weakens. This bill does not restrict innovation, slow research, or punish advancement. What it does is protect the structure of responsibility under Missouri law. It ensures that no matter how sophisticated AI becomes, people, not machines, remain accountable. I've grown up in the digital age. I've seen how quickly technology can reshape communication, commerce, and everyday life. Technological advancement moves quickly. Therefore, the law must respond deliberately and in a timely manner. We benefit when innovation thrives. We as Missourians are protected when responsibility is clear. Senate Bill 859 helps maintain that clarity. For those reasons, I respectfully urge this committee to support Senate Bill 859. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none, thank you again. Further witnesses in support? Seeing none, perhaps, please call the hallway. Seeing no further witnesses in support, first witness in opposition.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jared Hankinson, representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. First, I want to take an opportunity to thank and appreciate the intent from Senator Moon by bringing this legislation forward. There are just a few technical issues that we have with the language in its current form, and I will say I have not had an opportunity to review the substitute language that Senator Moon offered. I do look forward to the opportunity to do that and continue conversations with the senator in his office. We had very similar conversations with the House bill that was mentioned, had the same issues with the original language, and I think some of the modifications that were made over there were much more palatable to us. But I did want to take an opportunity to run through some of the concerns that we have right now. There's a lack of clarity in some of the definitions with things like adequate oversight, direct, indirect harm, adequate supervision, that from our perspective invites the opportunity for costly litigation on the businesses that develop and deploy these AI tools. Without that clarity, it does, from our perspective, seem like we're giving the opportunity for courts to kind of clarify the legislative intent here and clarify what exactly the rule is. So we would like to iron through those issues before we get to that point. Second, I do want to mention that legislation like this, we feel, does serve as a deterrent for those businesses that are making critical investments in states all across the country. It does serve as a deterrent from them investing in the state of Missouri, bringing those dollars and some of those jobs to the state. And this is something that's going to happen very quickly. These investments are going to be made in the coming years, and once we miss the boat, we will have missed the boat. And we want to make sure that Missouri is in a position to take full advantage of these incredibly important investments that are happening before the opportunity is up. And lastly, I do want to point to the federal executive order from the Trump administration. One of the concerns that we do have here is that within that executive order, the federal government did make very clear that they want to establish one unified framework. We're concerned about the litigation costs that the state could face from the DOJ. And with that, I will stop, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Further witnesses in opposition? Hearing none, has the Mr. Head of Security, could you call the hallway for any additional witnesses of any variety? Seeing no further witnesses in opposition, any witnesses for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, any closing remarks?
I no longer talk to Pi within the earshot of Denise.
Very good. Appreciate that presentation. That will conclude the public hearing on Senate Bill 859. We'll next go to, public hearing for Senate Bill 1324. Senator Hudson, I didn't see you in the back of the room there. Please proceed when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I am State Senator Brad Hudson, representing Missouri's 33rd Senatorial District, consisting of the counties of Stone, Taney, Douglas, Ozark, Texas, Howell, and Shannon, also known as God's Country. Senate Bill 1324 creates the Missouri Artificial Intelligence Transparency and Accountability Act. Before I explain the bill, I would like to give the caveat that this legislation is intentionally broad. It is a starting point. It is not an end point. We wanted it broad so it could be amended as needed to truly address the concerns about artificial intelligence while still allowing it to be used in situations that make sense. I know there are a number of people here, or there may anyway be a number of people here that are going to testify against this legislation or testify for informational purposes. My office has already spoken with a number of them and about our willingness to work with them on the bill. And for those who haven't yet connected with us, I'd say please reach out so we can address your concerns. This legislation came about due to the increasing prevalence of AI-generated content in our society. Without proper regulation and oversight, we will soon be, and in some ways already are, overwhelmed by content that is artificially created but indistinguishable from reality. My office was contacted over the interim by Tina Mahina, the wife of Barry Williams, who played Greg Brady on the Brady Bunch. They are constituents of mine and have had to endure horrible deep fakes created of them and shared on the internet. Regardless of fame, no one should have to endure that invasion of privacy. This bill won't address every situation in which AI is being misused, but it is a starting point in the conversation. Something must be done, and requiring the labeling of this content as AI generated is a logical start. So I'm going to dive in and give you just some of the highlights of the bill. Mr. Chair, I'll try not to take up too much time. I know you got a lot to talk about today. Under the Act, any person or entity creating AI generated content shall label the content as AI generated. Labeling requirements are described in the Act. Any AI generated content depicting a real individual shall include an additional disclaimer as described in the Act. Deployers, as defined in the Act, shall verify the authenticity of the content before generating the content and shall obtain consent from the individual depicted in the content, except when the content is used for parody or satire. Labels and watermarks on any AI-generated content shall be accessible to individuals with disabilities pursuant to current laws and guidelines. Certain exceptions apply and are described in the bill. Developers and deployers shall maintain usage logs of all AI systems generating content distributed for public consumption. Any personal data of the usage logs shall be kept anonymous and protected under current laws, except when requested by law enforcement, as described in the legislation. The Attorney General shall enforce provisions of the Act. Any person may report violations of the Act to the Attorney General. If the Attorney General finds that a violation occurred, the Attorney General shall commence a civil action. The court may grant relief and civil penalties as described. The Act shall not preclude an individual from bringing a private civil action for any violation. Individuals and entities that demonstrate good faith compliance with the Act may raise an affirmative defense to reduce civil penalties, provided they cure any violation within 30 days after receiving notice of the civil action. Within 180 days after the effective date of the Act, the Department of Commerce and Insurance may promulgate rules to enforce compliance with the Act, as described in the Act. The Department shall launch a public awareness campaign to educate Missouri residents about AI-generated content and the residents' rights. The Department shall establish an AI task force as described in the Act. Nothing in the Act shall preempt any political subdivision from enacting stricter or more stringent ordinances, laws, or rules, provided they do not conflict with provisions of the legislation. Simply put, this is an AI labeling bill. It is a work in progress, and I'm happy to work with all interested parties as we work to protect our citizens from inappropriate usage of their likeness in AI and AI-generated material. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you for that presentation. Questions for the bill sponsor? Yes, proceed, Senator.
So one of our colleagues has a bill, Senator Nicola has a bill that builds on what you're talking about related to elections. And so disclaimers for election materials that things are AI generated. Would that be something you'd be open to adding onto this bill?
So I think, as I mentioned early on, or attempted to give the indication in my testimony here or my presentation here, I want this to be a work in progress. This is the beginning of framework, and I am happy to have conversations with any and all interested parties, including Senator Nicola. I don't know that I've read that specific bill or looked at it at least to the extent that I would want to, of course, before we actually
I think
incorporate
I filed
something.
it last year or in years past,
Okay.
but I think Senator Nicola has it this year. I just think it's really timely since it's an election year as well. So,
Okay, all right, let's talk about it.
sounds good. Thanks.
Further questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, before we go into witness testimony, we're going to take a brief pause to establish a quorum, or else nothing here. We'll have to do all this again. So let's get a quorum, and then we will proceed with witness testimony. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to let you know while he's looking at that. We do have a caucus at 12:30, so I know I'll be leaving. I'm not sure if Senator from the 24th is going to stay here, but just want to let you know we have a caucus at 12:30.
All right, we have a quorum, and we will now proceed with witness testimony. First witness in support, Senate Bill 1324. Please come forward. And Mr. Head of Security, could you please call the hallway? We will go to witnesses in opposition. I did say in favor. We do have a witness in favor. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate. Mr. Chairman, I submitted my online testimony for all the bills today. Hopefully you received it this morning. With this, when it comes to AI, I'm a proponent. Like the sponsor stated, it's a good start. There's some room to make some progress and work on this bill to ensure that it's fair for all Missourians. But it's something that we really need to vest in, and we need to make sure that not only protection of children, protection of families, and protection of innocent Missourians, somebody can gain information or voice information or photos and make something, depict something on the internet or put something together that never actually happened. And so we need to hold those people accountable and responsible. We need to have penalties in place because guess what? Something that somebody portrays or makes up in a fiction type atmosphere, it has consequences for that person that they're targeting. It could be you as politicians. It could be anybody in this room. And so I applaud the sponsor for working on this issue, and hopefully we'll come up with something and get it over the finish line. But I'm in favor of the concept and this bill thus far. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses here in opposition, please come forward and proceed when ready.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brian Bernskater here on behalf of the Entertainment Software Association of America. We are the video game makers, a trade association for video game makers. Our opposition is really not to the concept of the bill. It's just the conversation about putting an AI generated or putting a watermark on a video game in which people are clearly know that they're playing a video game. There's no intent to deceive. So we were just asking, and we've had conversations with the Senator's office about an exemption for video games so we don't have to go through the watermark. We do have some language. A lot of states are having this conversation. Washington in particular has some a carve out and exemption that we would certainly offer as an opportunity.
Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in opposition?
Trip and fall right on you.
Tight in here, isn't it? How are you? Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jared Hankinson, representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'll avoid the duplicative points from my previous testimony, but on the bill before you today, well, first let me start with gratitude to the senator and his office for their willingness to continue conversations on getting to a point where language is agreeable. We look forward to those conversations, and we're confident that we'll be able to get there. But with the bill in its current form, one of the things I do want to focus on is the watermark and the burden that does place on businesses. It's an incredibly high burden. There is for lack of a better term, a boatload of artificially generated content out there, and it would be a very significant cost burden, bringing on staff, deploying the systems to be able to comb through all of the artificially generated content that is created and then apply those watermarks. It's a burden on businesses that they're just not able to sustain currently. I think, my testimony from the last bill, I'll avoid duplication there, but again, we'll just reiterate the appreciation for the senator's willingness to work through this, and we'll get that done.
Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Further witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Witnesses here for informational purposes only. Please proceed.
Good afternoon. I'll make this quick. My name is Eric Nelson. I'm a small advertising and marketing firm owner. I haven't read the full bill or the previous AI bill, but one of the things that you'll hear in some bills later this afternoon is the importance of definitions. And I want to make sure that we're defining what AI really is. There's a difference between AI and machine learning, especially when it comes to advertising and creating some of these content and things like that. So I would encourage the members of the committee to kind of work with the senator to make sure that definitions are very clear and very distinct on the difference between what AI is, what AI does, and what machine learning is doing for things like data entry and those types of things. So that's the only thing that I would encourage, is making sure that definitions are very clear, and I appreciate that the bill is kind of open-ended to be able to take in some of those things. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Any further witnesses for informational purposes only? Hearing none, that will conclude the public hearing on Senate Bill 1324. Senator, did you have any final remarks before we close?
Just thank you for the time, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
That will conclude the public hearing. We'll next go to Senate Bill 1444. Senator Lewis, please proceed when ready.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 1444. For the record, I am Senator Patty Lewis, representing the 7th District in Jackson County. I just want to share with you a brief story. I know a lot of folks use chatbots and ChatGPT to write speeches or do social media. So a few weeks ago, I was just curious, and I put in a chatbot, write a speech about Missouri State Senator Patty Lewis. And in a matter of seconds, I had this very well-written speech, and it talked about me being a nurse, came from the House and the Senate. And then there was this one sentence that said, Senator Lewis is a proud Kansan. And I don't claim to be a subject matter expert on everything. However, I am a subject matter expert on myself, and I can tell you I am not a proud Kansan. So I share that with you because we have seen an explosion in AI development in the recent years. AI has the immense potential to transform healthcare, but there are also risks involved. The direct-to-consumer market is flooded with chatbots making deceptive and dangerous claims. Senate Bill 1444 is a truth in advertising bill, a consumer protection bill to protect Missourians who are seeking mental health services. Specifically, this bill would prohibit AI chatbots from representing that they are or can act as mental health professionals, or that they can provide therapy services or mental health diagnoses. This bill does not prohibit the use of AI, but will ensure AI models do not falsely represent themselves to those who are in need of mental health care services. This is important for several reasons. Number one, certain groups can be more vulnerable to false advertising, especially our youth and those with limited access to care, such as those living in rural areas. Farmers have the highest rate of suicides than any other occupation. Around 1 in 8 children in the United States use AI for mental health advice. There have been several lawsuits alleging that AI models encourage or contribute to suicide of young people. In January, Character AI agreed to settle a lawsuit alleging the chatbot contributed to mental health crisis and suicides among young people. The second reason why this is important is that the way artificial intelligence works does not allow it to appropriately treat mental health needs, especially in crisis situations like suicide. AI models have been shown to confidently provide faulty information and reinforce negative or dangerous thinking. The third reason why this is important is Missouri has title protection laws for health and mental health professionals. A person cannot falsely advertise that they are a licensed mental health professional. The same logic should apply to AI. This bill has bipartisan support, has 2 companion bills in the House, 2368. Representative Peters is carrying, and she has a hearing on this tomorrow. Many other states have adopted similar laws or considering similar bills, such as Utah, Illinois, Oklahoma, Ohio, New Jersey, just to name a few. I will, if the chair allows in the committee, I would like to talk about the potential of having a sub to include all mental health care professionals. In the original document, we don't have our social workers, and we also want to include the AI cannot provide psychotherapy services or mental health diagnosis. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Hearing none. First witness in support. Please make sure you fill out a witness card and proceed when ready.
But I'll get that in here.
As long as you give them to us by the end of the hearing. So.
Will do. Thank you so much. And so again, thank you, Chairperson Trent and members of the committee. And thank you for Senator Lewis for presenting the bill. My name is Dr. Amy Beck, and I am a clinical health psychologist. I am here on my own behalf as well as the Missouri Psychological Association. And I would just like to share my personal experience with an AI chatbot. I recently purchased a wearable health monitor. That one right there. Yes, I am a dork enough to wear 2. And so it allows you to access your data on a phone app. And that app, unbeknownst to me, comes with an AI chatbot that is hard to avoid. And so in the past few months of experimenting with it, 3 things have become quite apparent that are consistent with what Senator Lewis was talking about. 1, it absolutely wants to engage with me. Every time the chatbot tells me something, it asks me another question to keep the conversation going. At no point does it stop. 2, it validates and reinforces everything that I do, even when it's a bad idea. For example, on Super Bowl Sunday, when I was cheering against the Patriots as a good Chiefs fan, I was so lazy that I literally did not get off the couch the entire day. And it told me that I did a good job relaxing, which sure is one way to look at it, but it was most definitely a day that should have been considered healthy or reinforced so strongly. And 3, it confidently tells me things that are inaccurate. It does provide a lot of accurate information that is helpful. However, it also provides a lot of inaccurate information that is misleading. I am an expert in health and behavior, so I can identify the wrong information, but the average person would not, especially when it's blended into the accurate information in a way that makes sense. And so in conclusion, these chatbots are not inherently bad, but but they are not trained professionals. And when someone who's in emotional pain or crisis uses one and thinks that they are getting something equivalent to the knowledge, care, and ethics of a trained professional, they are being misled and at risk of harm, which is why we need this consumer protections legislation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support. And again, ask witnesses to be as brief as possible.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Tyler Travers, a registered lobbyist here today on behalf of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Missouri chapter. We're in strong support of this legislation. We've all probably heard some of the horror stories of people who are in a really dark spot and they Google questions that we really wouldn't want AI to be misleading them, pretending to be a mental health professional when people are experiencing those dark times. And we're just in strong support of this legislation for those reasons.
Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Hurstan, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Association of Social Workers, Missouri chapter. I want to thank Chairperson Trent, members of the committee for hearing this, and of course, Senator Lewis for sponsoring the bill. There are over 11,000 social workers in Missouri who provide critical services, including behavioral health, case management services, and child welfare, substance use clinics, hospitals, mental health clinics, nursing homes, and more. We are testifying in favor of this bill as critical consumer protection language. The bill ensures that AI models cannot represent Missourians. They are mental health professionals or capable of providing therapy services. Social workers handle some of the most sensitive information imaginable: trauma histories, mental health diagnosis, substance abuse treatment, child welfare involvement, and deeply personal matters. Social workers also believe that healing happens within human relationships. AI cannot assess risk, interpret nonverbal cues, understand complex trauma response, or sit with a client in a crisis like a trained human professional can. And as was mentioned, there are several ongoing lawsuits in the United States alleging that AI models encouraged or contributed to suicides. We've talked to the sponsor about amendment that was mentioned, ensure all social workers are covered in this language. The current statutory reference only includes psychiatric social workers, which is just a subset. We also support language to clarify that AI models cannot provide psychotherapy or mental health diagnosis. Thank you for this opportunity to testify in support of 144 with these suggested amendments.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support. I've been informed that we do have a hard cutoff at 1 o'clock, so again, would ask witnesses to be as brief as possible because we have one more bill to get to.
Hi. Sorry, I got up. Yeah. Hi, honorable senators. My name is Dr. Brian Shebley. I am the prior president of the Missouri Mental Health Counselor Association and the governmental liaison for the Missouri Mental Health Counselors Association. I'm not going to read you a speech. What I will tell you, though, is that AI cannot be a mental health therapist or a licensed mental health professional. I have spent 15 years as a mental health professional. I spent 10 years as a school psychologist, and I've been spending more time now as a licensed professional counselor in private practice. AI can be a positive thing when used appropriately. However, I would like to ask this honorable committee to please regulate this issue as outlined in the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that testimony. Further witnesses in support? Thank you for queuing up and already being at the table. Proceed.
Well, I'm also with the Missouri Mental Health Counseling Association. I'm the current president. Oh, thank you. I'm Dr. Samantha Darnell Tracy, and I am also with the Missouri Mental Health Counseling Association as the president-elect. I am going to respect everybody's time. I am in favor of this law, and the same for the same reasons that everybody, all of my colleagues have mentioned before.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Next witness in support. Just keep coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate. This is a Q on Senate Bill 1444. It should be bipartisan. There shouldn't be politics put into this issue. I want to point to committee members to a incident that happened last year with Representative Trish Burns, where she was in this building and she wanted to utilize the mental health contract with the state through the Department of Mental Health, and she was actually talking to a chat bot rather than a mental health counselor. And so it was very odd. If you Google it, the story was in the Missouri Times. It was in the Missouri, various Missouri newspapers covered it. But it tells you that we really need to home in on this legislation before somebody gets hurt, injured, or loses their life because they're thinking that they're talking to a mental health counselor, and they're not. They're talking to a chat bot or an AI system. And so this is a spot-on legislation. It should be bipartisan, and we really need to work on this to get it across the finish line this year, not wait till next year when it could hurt people. Thank you very much.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, next witness in support, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of committee, Rachel Bauer here in support of Senate Bill 1444 on behalf of the Missouri State Medical Association and the Missouri Association of Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, next witness in support, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Garrett Webb, registered lobbyist with the Missouri chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Our support for this bill stems from the fact that we know kids are using chat boxes and they don't necessarily have the guardrails included to ensure that if a kid is thinking about suicide, that they're referred to something like 988 or a professional counselor. Also know that the rural population might lack access to mental health therapists, and so we think that this would be a really good guardrail to put in place. Finally, two last points. Just this morning, the Wall Street Journal had a story about an individual who committed suicide after failing to secure a human body for what he believed was his chat box girlfriend through Gemini. And his father is now suing, and so I would encourage you to read that. And finally, just last week, the Pope implored members of the clergy to not use AI to develop their sermons. So if anything, there's a little wisdom for you.
Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you again. Next witness in support.
Hi, I'm in support of Senate Bill 1444. My name is Dr. Jason Miloshik. I am a assistant director of clinical training, so I train future psychologists. I'm myself also a psychologist. Interesting that you bring up the Pope. If you ask ChatGPT if there's ever been an American Pope, it says highly unlikely. So that matches what Senator Lewis was saying when it comes to her CV. I'm also a parent of a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and like many parents, we are noticing that the parental controls are often wonky, not effective, and there's easy get-arounds. And I don't want to reiterate too much about the fact that AI chatbots have assisted in suicidal behavior across the country. We've had many parents who are now grieving and facing legal aspects of wondering how a machine was able to get so entrenched into their child's life, behavior, and future choices. These aren't hypotheticals. These are real cases that have happened. And as Missouri, we should be very careful about making sure that we put in guardrails. As a clinician, I can tell you AI cannot provide therapy. It cannot evaluate risk, cannot assume liability, cannot replace the empathetic, ethical, regulated judgment of a licensed mental health professional. When an AI system claims it can, the results can be catastrophic. I want to be clear, I'm not here to get in the way of innovation. I'm here in order to make sure that there's guardrails put in place, just like with any other consumer protection, that there's a place that says that this is not a mental health practitioner. SB 1444 does something very simple, very necessary. It prohibits companies from advertising or implying that their AI can act as a mental health professional, diagnose mental illness, or provide psychotherapy. This is not anti-technology. This is pro-safety, pro-transparency, and pro-child protection. As both a clinician and a parent, I urge you to pass Senate Bill 1444.
Questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in support? Proceed.
My name is Dr. Brittany Pratt. I'm a psychologist that practices in the Nix, Missouri area. I will not reiterate too much of what my colleagues have already said, sir. But what I will share is just how fast this happens when we're talking about kids accessing AI, potentially as mental health. So we went away for Christmas. As we traveled, we came back. And within 2 days, we noticed that my 8-year-old daughter had been spending some time in the bathroom with the door closed. She might be just trying to get some privacy. She is 8, right? But we heard her talking and had realized that our home electronic assistant had updated while we were gone and now had an AI feature. And she was having what she called her private talks with the AI. This person, she has a counselor she can talk to. She has me, she's her dad, grandparents, whatever. But had gotten so sucked into this AI conversation for private talks and support with bullying at school that she was unwilling to hear our advice in 2 days. 2 days. That's how fast that happened. Now, thankfully, we caught it. We were able to undo the upgrade, and we were able to get some other guardrails in place. But 2 days is how long it took an 8-year-old to trust one of these AI chatbots over a human that they had a long-standing relationship with. So with that, I want to just reiterate my support for SB1444. Thank you very much for your time.
Questions for this witness? Hearing none, thank you for being here. Further witnesses in support, proceed.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jessica Harvath. I'm a licensed psychologist, thank you, and owner of a group practice in St. Louis. So I know we've talked about some of the issues with AI chatbots, and one of the reasons why they are so harmful is because they are really bad at offering critical feedback, and that's necessary from a therapeutic standpoint. So these programs use machine learning to increase engagement, and the AI chatbots have figured out that people really like engaging with a program that tells them that they're clever, reasonable people who have really good ideas. I'm the same way, I can understand that. So essentially these generative AI programs are validation machines, and it's a significant problem that seems to be baked into the algorithm of these programs, and it causes inaccuracies and outright AI hallucinations that can exacerbate mental health symptoms, contribute to crises or suicide. So essentially, this comes because, just like anybody, clients don't always have the best ideas. And you don't want to go about reinforcing the wrong ideas that can lead to really harmful outcomes. Researchers at Boston University tried to see how badly this could go. They went to specifically programs that are advertising themselves as being therapy programs. So these are not just general AI software, these are advertising themselves as being supportive. And they pretended to be fictional adolescents with some obviously harmful or ill-advised ideas. So they proposed things like dropping out of school, avoiding all human contact for a month, or pursuing a relationship with an older teacher. And what they found was the results were alarming. The chatbots were outright harmful, and they championed roughly a third of these terrible ideas. None of the chatbots performed perfectly. They all endorsed at some level some of these really bad ideas. And so I don't personally know any therapist who would not have gotten a perfect score. These are slam dunk things to reject. And so that's these programs at a baseline, they have no oversight, no HIPAA protections, and most importantly, they are unable to follow basic ethical principles like do no harm. Thank you very much for your time.
Questions? Seeing none. Next witness in support, and I will implore the witnesses, please, as briefly as possible so we can get to all the witnesses.
Sure, I'll be as quick as I possibly can. My name's Jessica Gerfin. I am a psychologist and here representing support for this bill for St. Louis Behavioral Medicine Institute as well as the Missouri Psychological Association. I just want to share a very brief story involving me and my 11-year-old son. So one day I was helping him with his homework. We were doing IXL math. If you're not familiar with that, please feel free to talk to me offline. But basically, you get knocked down scores if you get a question wrong and you have to get to 80. It is miserable. I feel like I have years of statistical experiences. Anyway, I digress. We're doing this math. We get to what I think is the final question, and I do what any self-respecting, very desperate mom would do. Take the last question that he answered, put it into AI just to double check the answer, said it was correct. great, entered it in, and it was wrong. And that's for a math problem where there's a very right and wrong answer. Now imagine mental health where there's a lot of subjectivity and a lot of ways that questions can be answered. That's how I realized that AI is very susceptible for how you ask the question. So I'm here asking you to please take into account what I just shared and support this bill, because if you get it wrong with mental health, the consequences are much worse than having to do a lot more math. Thank you.
Next witness.
Good morning. Heidi Lucas, Missouri Rural Health Association. We're just entering for support.
Thank you for that exemplary testimony. Next witness in support.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Nyman. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Center for Mental Health Services Research at Washington University. I'm a medical anthropologist by training, and my specialty is AI therapy and chatbots. I'm here to speak in favor of the bill. As I said, I'm an anthropologist by training. I can speak more to the kind of human side of things. Therapy, mental health care between one human being and another is a lot more than most people think it is. Computers are very good and will get better. But there are some things that computers will never be able to do. One of those things is share time, the idea of spending time. I'm here, you all are here to the exclusion of your other responsibilities. That's something that will never be true of the computer. That's something that you get implicitly when you're talking to your therapist. They're talking to you and to no one else. The second factor is authority, and I mean that in a value-neutral sense, that when you go see a therapist, or perhaps virtually, they dress a certain way, there's degrees on the wall, they're imbued with a certain social, cultural authority. You have reason, good reason to suspect that they have something important to tell you, that they can help you. And I don't really understand how you would ever establish that level of credibility with an AI. So just wanted to call attention to these more kind of cultural, anthropological aspects, and again, voice my support for the bill.
Thank you. Questions? Hearing none. Next witness in support.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for giving us the time to speak, and to Senator Lewis for sponsoring this bill. My name is Dr. Tyler Staples. I am a licensed psychologist practicing in Missouri, specializing in psychological assessment of adolescents and young adults. I am here in support of Senate Bill 1444. This bill does not restrict artificial intelligence as a technology. It addresses how AI systems may be represented to the public. That distinction is critical, as we've seen in recent news stories. In my practice, I work with adolescents and young adults who are often seeking answers during some of the most vulnerable periods of their lives. They already feel confused and distressed about what they are experiencing. And seeking answers, children and their caregivers frequently turn to AI, where these systems prioritize consumer satisfaction, not responsible care. Clarity about who is providing care and who is not is essential to their safety and trust. Mental health diagnosis is a treatment, and treatment requires more than just identifying symptoms and patterns. They involve differential diagnosis, risk assessment, integration of multiple data sources, and clinical judgment developed through years of supervised training. Licensed professionals in Missouri are regulated by state boards, bound by ethical standards, and legally accountable for their decisions. AI systems do not hold licenses, they do not assume a duty of care, and they do not carry malpractice liability. Senate Bill 1444 addresses this through consumer protection mechanisms rather than restricting innovation. AI can be a valuable informational tool, but an informational tool is not the same as a licensed provider. Clarity about who and what is a mental health provider is not anti-innovation. It is basic consumer protection. And I thank you again for your time and your consideration.
Questions? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Witnesses for informational purposes only? Seeing none. That will conclude. Senator, do you have any closing remarks? Thank you. That will conclude public hearing on Senate Bill 1444. We'll next go to public hearing on House Bill 2061. Representative, please proceed. I'm sorry to ask, but please make it brief.
We have 2 minutes, so I come here talking about House Bill 2061. It's a Jewish student safety bill, and what the bill will do is just make sure that our Jewish students can feel safe and comfortable going to school and educated instead of being exposed to anti-Semitic harassment in there. So I hope the committee will approve the bill.
Thank you, Representative. And this bill has had a hearing in another committee this year, so we will proceed with witness testimony. Well, first, was there any questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none. And we will also alternate between supporting and opposing. First in support. We will alternate if someone would come up to in support. Yes. And I see we have a special witness. Attorney General, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. I will be very brief. I'm in support of the bill. I think it does a very good job of balancing between prohibiting anti-Semitic conduct and preserving free speech rights.
Thank you. Any questions for the Attorney General? Hearing none. Thank you for being here. First witness in opposition, and then we will continue to alternate from there.
Yeah, my name is Michael Berg. I'm with Jewish Voice for Peace in St. Louis. And, this hearing went for over 3 hours in the House. It's a very complicated bill. I think it's kind of absurd to have it truncated this much, but it is a speech code. It is a speech code designed to protect one country from specific types of criticism, Israel, that criticism that is not applied to any other country. And the problem with the definition is the contemporary examples of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. So the three most problematic definitions are applying double standards by requiring it of it behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. That assumes it's a democratic nation, which is not, according to half the people in Israel don't get a vote. And who gets to decide what is a democratic nation? Will it always be a democratic nation? We're putting into our laws. It says you can't draw comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy that of Nazis. The Moshe Yaalon, the former Secretary of Defense of Israel, just said that Israel has an ideology of Jewish supremacy and has become the dominant in the government of Israel and is reminiscent of Nazi race theory. Would he be called an anti-Semite? It talks about denying Jewish people the right to self-determination by calling Israel a racist state. It is a racist state according to all the most prominent human rights organizations on earth. There's not really time to go in all the problems with it, but I want to bring up the fact that people will say it's not a speech code because something has to trigger it. What has to trigger it in the bill are if this kind of definition, this kind of behavior are impeded from the normal, causes people to be impeded from the normal course of work, study, or access to the educational institution and the educational institution services, facilities, either by physically impeding such activity or creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation. So that just because there's a trigger doesn't mean that it's not a speech code. So, for example, if you were if you were having a demonstration and you said Israel's a racist state, free Palestine, then if you blocked the library, then someone could say, oh, you're committing anti-Semitism, then you are liable under this code. But if you had a demonstration that said, I'm Israel High, the Palestinian Authority is a racist organization, you have no liability. This is why it was Texas court determined that it's impermissible viewpoint discrimination. There is also cases about this specific definition going in courts in Kentucky and California. I wanted to add that 152 people testified against this bill in the House. There's been the Jewish community is divided on this. There's been dueling editorials in the Jewish Light, and you have you have a lot of people in the state who do not want this passed, a lot of Jews who do not want this passed, including rabbis and other prominent individuals, and I implore you to explore this subject much more fully than you can have in a very truncated hearing.
Yes, thank you for that testimony, and I would again encourage folks to leave written testimony if they could. We've been given a little bit of dispensation here because Senate time is working for us this time. Could I see a show of hands of how many people intend to testify on this? About 14 or 15. Okay. We will go as quickly as we can. I'm told that the hallway does not have any witnesses. Very good. I believe the next witness is in support. please proceed, and again, keep it as brief as possible.
Hi, my name is Catherine Rosellenhorn. I am 17. I'm a senior at a high school in St. Louis. I just want to say that I've experienced more anti-Semitism at school than I have anywhere else in my life. It's become a real problem after October 7th, and this bill will give students a channel to properly report that anti-Semitism, the same as any other racist incident.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions? Seeing none. Further witnesses in opposition?
Aaron Nyman again, WashU postdoc, member of the St. Louis Jewish community, reading a very brief excerpt from the written testimony, which I'll leave with you. Candidly, I do not understand what it is that proponents of this bill want. How much more water they want the American public to carry for Israel, how much more cover they want us and our elected representatives to provide for its crimes. The United States, explicitly per Secretary of State Rubio on Monday, just went to war on Israel's behalf, sparking a regional and possibly global conflagration. The United States has already lost lives and spent hundreds of millions in materiel. There is virtually nothing that the apparatus of American government will not do to advance the interests of Israel and its extremist supporters. Proponents of this bill cannot seem to take yes for an answer. Please do not give it to them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none. Next in support.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aiden Nelson, and I am a Jewish high school student. Notice how I said high school student? I'm sure you all would like to know what school I'm a part of, but I'm not going to say because of the common constant fear that many other Jewish students also have, being a target for discrimination at the very place we are supposed to be protected. Students like me should be able to go to school and learn without seeing swastikas, getting threats, or hearing that Jews should not exist through the halls. This is exactly what this bill aims to protect us from. Of course, kids will be kids and will make comments no matter what. But on numerous occasions, kids will be let off the hook with no consequences. We as Jewish students feel that not enough is being done, and that's why I'm here. This bill defines anti-Semitism and holds our schools accountable for providing the same safety to all students. All discrimination issues should be bipartisan, and this bill doesn't have anything to do with conflicts in the Middle East either. Especially with ongoing tensions, I urge you to not carry those events into voting on this bill. This bill won't solve what's going on, but that's not the point. The point is to make sure that students like me can proudly celebrate who we are at school and feel supported and safe so that we can thrive. We all know that as Americans, we have freedom of speech unless it presents a clear and present danger. Freedom of speech is not infringed in this bill, but when words are being said against my very existence and things are being said about extreme politics or calling for the destruction of the state of Israel, a safe haven for Jews, that sounds alarms, and that's when it crosses the line. Teachers should teach fact, not opinion. Remember how that ended up for us Jews in World War II? Students should not be able to threaten others. Jewish students deserve to safely learn too. This bill doesn't prevent other groups from getting protection either if they feel they aren't being protected. If any other group is experiencing similar struggles, I would like to propose you to be proactive like we were and advocate for yourselves as well, instead of trying to prevent us from getting the treatment in school we deserve. I urge the chairman and committee to vote in favor of House Bill 2061. Thank you for your time.
Questions? Hearing none. Next in opposition.
Hello, my name is Maxine, and I'm a Jewish resident of Missouri. I, too, really sympathize with people who have experienced anti-Semitism. I grew up experiencing significant amount of anti-Semitism, and I think we can all agree here that it's an issue worth addressing. However, this bill does not do that. Despite what proponents may tell you, there's such a fundamental conflict with the First Amendment and freedom of speech, because this enshrines the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism into law, which is so widely contested, not just from progressive Jews, but from Jews really across the political spectrum. This is because it conflates Israel with Jews. That is something that is anti-Semitic. I, as a Jewish person, do not have anything to do with the state of Israel, and I don't condone its actions. I don't condone its acts of war. I don't condone its genocidal acts. I don't condone its war crimes. And so to conflate criticism of Israel with criticism of Jews makes me more in danger than I am right now. And that's really a concern to me, and that's unacceptable. There are other definitions that are more widely agreed upon by scholars, and I think that those could be used in this law, like the Jerusalem Declaration. Again, I think anti-Semitism is worth addressing, but this doesn't do that. I want you to consider the example of if a student presents an academic argument that Israel is a racist state. They could very, very easily do that based on historical evidence and current politics of Israel. However, if a Jewish student in that classroom complains that they have felt an atmosphere of intimidation, as is the wording in the bill, that's a very nebulous and interpretable
language to enshrine, and it leaves basically the enforcement of this legislation entirely up to the bodies that will enforce this in any particular educational institution. So if the people who are in charge of enforcing this legislation only have this definition off of which to go, then they would be forced to say that that student is anti-Semitic. If a student complains that they feel an atmosphere of intimidation, even if that student making that presentation was Jewish, even if that student has made it abundantly clear that they support Jews. This bill has already been wielded to remove faculty from their positions, to, I'll rest my, Gill, G-I-L-L.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions? Seeing none. Next witness in support.
My name is Rabbi Michael Rovinsky. I'm the director of the Jewish Student Union and Jewish Culture Clubs. We currently service this past year over 577 middle school and high school students throughout St. Louis in 16 schools. We're scheduled to beat the 600 mark this year. My staff and I deal every week with countless bullying, acts of violence, threats, harassment, intimidations of our students. They come to us, the parents call us, we help them advocate, we meet with faculty, administrators in both the schools as well as the school districts. The one common response we get from them is, we don't know what to do. Is this anti-Semitic? Is it not anti-Semitic? If we act as if it is, and it ends up not being, we're in trouble. If we don't respond, and it is anti-Semitism, we're in trouble. We need a clear definition. And this is what this bill will do, is give a clear definition as to what is and what isn't anti-Semitic. It does not infringe on free speech. You can walk down the hall of a school and say about Jews, about Israel, whatever you want. But if you interfere and you intimidate the student and they're afraid to come to class, or you block the door so they can't get into the classroom, or like one of my staff members' kids on a bus 2 weeks ago was beaten up and called a dirty Jew, a middle school kid, that's what this is about. You still have plenty of free speech. Thank you very much, and I encourage your support for House Bill 2061.
Questions? Hearing none. Next witness in opposition.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Keith Rose. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Growing Justice, a civil liberties organization based in St. Louis. We often provide legal counsel and defense to people who are prosecuted or investigated for their protest activities. And one of our concerns is that individuals will be brought up on charges because of their viewpoints. We've seen that around the country. But speaking from a personal perspective, I went to one of the few Jewish universities in the United States, and when I worked in the Near Eastern and Judaic Studies department, we had robust discussions and debates about not only the modern state of Israel and its founding, but its connections to Jewish identity. And I fear that institutions like Mizzou would no longer be places where those academic debates would be allowed, where people who are studying Jewish history and Jewish modernity wouldn't be able to adequately discuss the issues of our current events, let alone the founding of the state. And I fear that what we're doing with a bill like this is the state is restricting people from having academic discourse. I was speaking to my husband last night. He's born in China, but is now an American. And we were talking about what it would be like if the state of Missouri were to conflate being Chinese with the state of China, and say that individuals who are Chinese are being discriminated against not for being Asian, but because they're Chinese, and therefore we cannot criticize the Chinese government under the Communist Party. He said this would be completely absurd. And it's, I think, equally absurd to have any carve-outs for this one nation, Israel, just because of specific relationships with our country to their government. And I would really like to make sure that we keep open the idea that people can debate issues that are currently addressing our world and our country. And I fear that having the state to stifle individuals from one side of this viewpoint and not the other, it really does a disservice to academics and to students as they try to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Hearing none. Next witness in support.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Greg Yowitz. I'm the board chair of the St. Louis Kaplan Feldman Holocaust Museum. As an institution dedicated to Holocaust education and the lessons it imparts, The museum encourages the legislature to consider the importance of enacting measures through HB 2061 that ensure educational environments remain free from anti-Semitic harassment and discrimination. The Holocaust did not begin with concentration camps. It began with words, with unchecked anti-Semitism and with discrimination that was tolerated more than it was condemned. As anti-Semitic rhetoric and incidents rise across the United States, it is critical that Missouri schools be equipped to define, recognize, and respond to anti-Semitism effectively. HB 2061 provides an essential framework for identifying and addressing anti-Semitism by incorporating the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism into Missouri's educational policies. This definition is already used by 37 states, 44 countries, and the U.S. Department of State since 2005. Ensuring that anti-Semitic discrimination is treated equally to other forms of discrimination is a necessary step in safeguarding students and educators from harassment while upholding Missouri's commitment to fostering inclusive learning environments. Anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial, and the Holocaust distortion are not just relics of the past, they are active threats today. The St. Louis Kaplan-Feldman Holocaust Museum stands ready to partner with Missouri's policymakers to protect educators and students in the classroom. Our hope is that you will vote yes on HB 2061. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Hearing none. Next in opposition.
I'm George Smith. I taught at Mizzou for 40 years, and I'm here in opposition. And I just want to make one point, that the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism explicitly says that it's a non-legally binding working definition of anti-Semitism. It's intended as a tool for recognizing anti-Semitic speech and acts in the context of research, not of legislation. And in fact, Kenneth Stern, who is a scholar of anti-Semitism and the principal author of the IHRA definition, vehemently argued against using it to police speech on campuses when he testified before the U.S. House of Representatives in 2017. He said, although discussions around Israel and Zionism may often be uncomfortable for its supporters and detractors alike, it is the responsibility of students and educators to foster dialogue and not limit it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is going to have to conclude witness testimony. Unfortunately, I can't control the bell. I do encourage individuals to submit written testimony that will all be distributed to the committee. Representative, do you have any final thought?
Thank you so much for squeezing it in. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative. That will conclude the public hearing on House Bill 2061. I make a motion that the committee stand adjourned. Do I have a second? It's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.